Let's get straight to our top story, though, for you. Another big day, another busy one. Explosive new reports claiming the fake dossier was, in fact, used to spy on the Trump campaign. And the bombshell comes as the House is set for a showdown on a controversial vote over the privacy of Americans. Griff Jenkins joins us now live from our nation's capital, where it's all going down. So, Griff, you got to love a little Kid Rock in the morning, right?
Absolutely. Starting your day with Kid Rock, the perfect way to start it. And You're right, the House is set for a showdown and vote over renewing Section 702 of the FISA Act. That's the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which gives the government counterterrorism tools to spy on communications of non-citizens outside of the United States without having to obtain a warrant. But a group of lawmakers led by Republican Justin Amash are seeking significant reforms to the act, offering his own amendment that would make it harder for intelligence officials to collect communications when it involves Americans.
It's an amendment that will allow the government to continue its surveillance for foreign intelligence, but will provide for a protection when searching on Americans, so that when they want to collect and use data on Americans, they have to get a warrant.
If we do not put the F back in FISA, it becomes ISA, and the American public should know that the eyes are on them.
Now, this comes as the debate swirls over allegations that the so-called Trump-Russia dossier was used as evidence for obtaining a FISA warrant that was used to spy on the Trump campaign, something House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, you may remember, just at the end of last year expressed concerns over the matter in a letter to the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, demanding documents that they had been withholding until just the beginning of January. Now, in a report unconfirmed by Fox News, investigative journalist Sarah Carter told Sean Hannity last night that she's seen evidence that the answer to that question is yes.
I have spoken to a number of sources, one senior law enforcement official and another in the DOJ, and the dossier was absolutely used as part of the FBI's ability to gain a warrant to basically spy on members of the Trump campaign.
And more news yesterday at a press conference with Norway's president. President Trump was asked whether he would allow to be interviewed by Mueller in the investigation. Here's what he said.
Certainly, I'll see what happens. But when they have no collusion and nobody's found any collusion at any level, it seems unlikely that you'd even have an interview.
And finally, Heather, President Trump taking a shot at Senator Dianne Feinstein yesterday, calling her sneaky over the release of transcripts between Judiciary Committee officials and the author of that dossier. And in addition, the president's attorney, Michael Cohen, launching a defamation suit against the author of that dossier. A lot of moving parts. Not even Kid Rock could perhaps process it all.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk a little bit more about what the president had to say about Feinstein being sneaky in just a moment. Thank you so much, Griff. Appreciate it. Well, the latest reports on the dossier are sparking outrage among the president's supporters, as you would imagine, who say, if true, it is a blatant miscarriage of justice. So the Salem nationally syndicated radio host Larry Elder wants to know, what about Hillary Clinton, calling the blatant double standard an insult to the American people?
If that fake dossier was the basis for which they got the FISA warrant and were able to surveil all of these aides for Donald Trump, it's awful. And the American people can see this, Sean. They see the double standard. They see the pass that Hillary got for having her server in her basement, for deleting 33,000 emails after they were under subpoena. Nothing happened regarding the Clinton Foundation pay-to-play stuff. Let's not forget that James Comey admitted that Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General at the time, came up to him and told him, can you call the Clinton investigation a matter and not an investigation? What is that? Did anybody accuse the Obama administration of obstruction of justice when Obama publicly said he didn't believe Hillary had an intent to hurt the country? Intent is not an element of the statute. Why wasn't Obama brought up for obstruction of justice charges? Double standard.
And then on top of that, as Griff was just telling us, President Trump slamming Dianne Feinstein for releasing the Fusion GPS testimony. Our commander-in-chief tweeting, in fact, the fact that sneaky Dianne Feinstein, who has on numerous
occasions, but I've had a bad cold, and maybe that slowed down my mental facilities a little bit.
Okay, well, the Democratic lawmaker also coming under fire for working with Fusion GPS to redact large sections of the transcripts, which undercuts the argument that the release was done in the name of transparency. And then another story we're following, big one. Congress could be on the brink of a landmark or reaching a landmark bipartisan deal involving DACA and the president's long-promised border wall. Marianne Rafferty joins us now from Los Angeles. Marianne, we're hearing that the Senate could strike a deal by the end of the week.
Good morning, Heather. That's right. There's optimism on both sides of the aisle, reaching an all-time high as lawmakers say a deal on DACA could come, as you said, by the end of the week. Congress full steam ahead, hammering out a bipartisan deal to determine the future of the Obama-era DACA program that includes border security, and it could come within the next few days. This after historic televised negotiations between nearly 24 lawmakers where Democrats tried to cut the wall out of the deal, but President Trump still not backing down.
It's got to include the wall. We need the wall for security. We need the wall for safety. We need the wall for stopping the drugs from pouring in.
The House echoing that call, unveiling its bill that includes a $30 billion budget for the border wall and security priorities.
This bill funds the border wall and secures ports of entry along the southern border. It also increases boots on the ground and support from the National Guard. Our bill ends chain migration and the visa lottery program. This bill provides DACA recipients a reasonable, long-term legislative solution. It ensures that DACA recipients don't get a special pathway to citizenship.
This as the Senate claims they're also on the brink of landing a deal.
We're closer. We have the 4 items, the border, chain, visa lottery, and DACA. We're very, very close.
President Trump also reacting to a federal court's decision halting the administration's ability to rescind DACA. Quote, it just shows everyone how broken and unfair our court system is when the opposing side in a case such as DACA always runs to the Ninth Circuit and almost always wins before being reversed by higher courts. Lawmakers also have just 8 days before a government spending bill is also due on January 19th. Heather?
All right, Marianne Rafferty live for us this morning from Los Angeles. Thank you so much, Marianne. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Well, after nearly a year in office, President Trump is already closing in on a second monumental legislative victory. And Senator Lindsey Graham says that it's because he's doing something that previous presidents never could, and that's building a bridge to bipartisanship.
I think the president did a fabulous job of talking about this problem. He did it in a smart way, in a compassionate way. And, his job is not to sell books. His job is not to carry a TV show. His job is to solve problems, and he's got to work with Democrats. And I was proud of my president. For 10 years, I've been working on this. Obama tried it, couldn't do it. Bush tried it, couldn't do it. Donald Trump will be the president that can do it. He's got credibility on the border security issue that nobody else has. He does have compassion in his heart for these kids. We're going to get a good deal under his leadership. And the difference between being a radio talk show host and a TV personality and president is that as president, you got to solve problems.
And on the heels of the president's unprecedented televised roundtable, Senate lawmakers say that they could release a bipartisan bill, as we said, by the end of this week. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll have it for you if that happens. That would be tomorrow, basically. Well, a Fox News alert for you, an urgent travel warning for U.S. tourists. The State Department issuing a do not travel advisory for 5 crime-ridden states in Mexico, giving them the same threat level as countries like Syria and Afghanistan. The states are considered hot spots for drug cartel activity, trafficking routes, carjackings, and robberies. The U.S. government has limited capabilities to provide help to U.S. travelers in these areas, and they want tourists to just stay away. And in a race against time at this hour to save people missing in those California mudslides, the death toll now at 17. Staggering amounts of rain triggering raging rivers. Look at all this mud, the debris just running down hillsides, taking anything and everything with it. The hardest hit area, Montecito, that's where thousands are now without power. Over 100 homes destroyed and hundreds more damaged. So pray for all those folks out there. And the mysterious disappearance of a missing University of Pennsylvania student is now a homicide investigation. Overnight, classmates of Blaze Bernstein holding a candlelight vigil in his honor. The 19-year-old's body was found at a park outside of Los Angeles, the same park where he vanished 1 week ago after he went there to meet a friend. And police have interviewed that friend, but say they do not consider him a suspect. And the man accused of trying to pull off an ISIS-inspired suicide bombing in New York City has been indicted. Qaeda Ullah is charged with providing support to a terrorist organization. He faces up to life in prison if convicted. Ullah was the only one seriously injured when a pipe bomb partially detonated at a bus terminal in the heart of Times Square during the morning rush hour last month. And Jared Kushner turning his attentions toward prison reform. The senior advisor will meet today with President Trump and Attorney General Jeff Sessions to share his ideas on the issue in a listening session. The administration hoping that prison reform will allow them to cut crime and save money. And this is a personal issue for Kushner, whose father was sentenced to 2 years in prison for tax evasion. And the time now is 12 minutes after the top of the hour. The Trump administration ramping up pressure on Iran amid deadly crackdowns on political protesters. The new warning from the White House. And President Trump slamming sneaky Dianne Feinstein after she released some testimony from the firm behind that discredited dossier. Did it just compromise the whole investigation? Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton joins us with the 5 key takeaways you need to hear from the report.
20 items for $1. 20 steps on the pyramid. Who's really behind this? Is it the Illuminati or the Bell-Illuminati?
And country legend Charlie Daniels just launched an all-out Twitter war with Taco Bell over that ad. So what's his beef? Welcome back to Fox and Friends. First, President Trump, we told you about this, slamming Senator Dianne Feinstein after the Democrat released the private testimony from the firm behind the anti-Trump dossier. The president suggesting that the move may have been illegal. This, as we just learned, that the FBI used that unverified dossier to obtain warrants to spy on the Trump campaign. Here now to react is the president of Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton. Thank you so much for joining us once again, Tom. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning, Heather. How are you?
So I'm doing great. But what is your initial reaction when you hear, probably not too surprised, that this dossier was in fact used to launch this investigation?
Well, it's not surprising, and explains why the FBI and Justice Department have been stonewalling the release of information about the FISA application and the dossier itself. We've had FOIA lawsuits and requests about this information. They still won't confirm or deny whether there's information about the dossier to Judicial Watch. Even as they're turning over all the information to Congress, it's really something else. You know, what really bothers me about this is, you know, the FBI gets this salacious material about Donald Trump from this Clinton campaign vendor, Mr. Steele and Fusion GPS, and they use it as an excuse to go and spy on Trump, as opposed to warning Trump that the Russians may have it in for him. And when you bring in Senator Feinstein, it makes it even more interesting, because 20 years ago, Heather, people may not remember this, but the Chinese also had plans and were giving out donations and things to influence our elections. And what did the FBI do then? They went and warned Feinstein.
Well, and tell me this, though, in terms of Dianne Feinstein and what she's done, and we brought this up at the very beginning of the segment, I mean, has she compromised the investigation completely now by releasing this testimony?
Well, it's a dishonest transparency, if that's possible. You did it. You had it with the release of this transcript, because the transcript is redacted, as you pointed out. The documents behind the transcript about which he was questioned are redacted. And the context is missing, in the sense that we didn't have certain information, certain investigators didn't have certain information when they were questioning him, because he refused to tell them, for instance, and people should go and read the testimony.
Yes,
it's available
absolutely,
online.
they should.
For instance, who was he working for? He refused to tell them that he was working for the Clinton campaign, and that would have been a very different deposition.
Yeah.
If they had known he was working for the Clinton campaign.
And something else, I'm sorry, it's something else, because I want to get you to comment on this. A quote that was taken from it, it talks about this human source, and he says that the FBI believed Chris's information might be credible because they had other intelligence indicating the same thing, and one of those was a human source from inside the Trump organization, but we now know that wasn't true.
That wasn't true. According to now the Fusion GPS people are putting out the line. Well, what he was referencing was Papadopoulos, who was not the source, but who had talked to this Australian diplomat, who then talked to the FBI. What's concerning about that is, remember, Steele, the Fusion GPS dossier author from the UK, went to the FBI, talked to the FBI. Again, the Clinton campaign vendor went and talked to the FBI, and then the FBI starts conveying information to this Clinton campaign vendor.
Yes. Clinton-Russia collusion perhaps is what we should be looking a little bit more into, sounds like to me.
Well, it sounds like to me, what also Simpson refused to say is, what role did the Clinton campaign have in managing Steele?
Very
good question. Right, and it was communicating with the Russians. Yeah. Were they directing him or communicating with him? He refused to say, and this is why you got to bring in the campaign, maybe even Mrs. Clinton herself, to find out about the level of their collusion with the Russians to get Trump.
Well, Tom, you always know what's about to happen next. That's what I say. So thank you very much for joining us. People, you should listen to what he has to say. Thank you.
You're welcome, Heather.
Have a great day. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Fox and Friends First. So what does Donald Trump have in common with a World War II bombing in Germany? Both apparently have inspired a book, and a Canadian book released nearly a decade ago is now becoming a bestseller. Take a look. You can see why. Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7. Sirius XM 115 is here with the frenzy over the wrong Fire and Fury book, right?
Yeah, apparently there's a lot of confusion out there. So let's try and set the record straight on this one, Heather. So on the left, we have Michael Wolff's controversial book about the Trump administration called Fire and Fury. And as people rush to order their copy of this one, some people ordered a copy of this book called The Allied Bombing of Germany, Fire and Fury. So many people made this mistake that the World War II book actually reached reportedly the #3 spot on the Amazon bestseller list. And some people on social media say that is a good thing. Dwayne tweeted, probably a much better choice than the Hillary Clinton fan fiction written by Michael Wolff. Another tweet says the difference is the book about the bombing in World War II is fact and the current book is fiction. And another Twitter user writes, confused readers are mistaking buying something worth reading. So
what do we do before we have the Twitter comments to add to our stories? I love it.
Yeah.
So there's this assignment that's asking students to give a good reason for slavery.
Yeah, a teacher in Wisconsin is under fire for asking students to talk about the benefits of slavery. So 4th grade students at Our Redeemer Lutheran School were asked to give 3 good reasons for slavery and 3 bad ones. A concerned mother posted about it on Facebook saying, does anyone else find my 4th grader's homework offensive? Well, her child answered that question saying, I feel there is no good reason for slavery. That's why I did not write it. Of course, that Facebook is getting a whole lot of buzz on social media today. The principal of that school apologized, saying that the purpose of the assignment was to spark debate, not talk about the benefits of slavery by any means.
So finally, Charlie Daniels warning Taco Bell about the Illuminati.
That's right. So there's this new commercial, a new Taco Bell commercial about the Illuminati. In a sense, they call it the Balluminati. And Devil Went Down to Georgia singer Charlie Daniels is warning people about it. Let's take a listen to that commercial.
20 items for $1. 20 steps on the pyramid. Who's really behind this? Is it the Illuminati or the Bell-Luminati?
Okay, so we don't know if Charlie Daniels is joking or not, but he took to Twitter saying, hey, Taco Bell, the Illuminati is not a frivolous subject. So what do you think? Is he joking? Is he actually warning folks about the Illuminati?
I don't know, but people should follow him on Twitter.
He does tweet a lot. He does know that the devil went down to Georgia, so maybe he also knows about this shadowy organization.
Very good, very good. All right, thank you so much, Carly. Appreciate it. Well, President Trump, one step closer to delivering on this campaign promise.
And we have to start by building a wall, a big, beautiful, powerful wall.
We'll meet the man who wants to turn President Trump's border wall idea into a big, beautiful national landmark. And the PC police may have finally gone too far. Why Dolly Parton just pulled the plug on a popular Dollywood attraction. Welcome back. Vice President Mike Pence will lead our nation's top athletes at the Olympics in South Korea next month. But supporting the American delegation won't be his only mission.
The underlying message is the president is sending us there to make it clear that we stand with South Korea, we stand with our allies in the region, and we will continue to bring maximum economic and diplomatic pressure to bear until North Korea abandons its nuclear and ballistic missile programs that threaten the United States of America.
Well, North Korea has agreed to send a delegation to the Games after historic talks with the South. The two nations, North and South Korea, are now considering walking together in the opening ceremonies. That would be remarkable to see. And the White House slamming Iran, demanding the immediate release of thousands of citizens arrested for protesting the government. The White House saying, quote, Iran's regime claims to support democracy, but when its own people express their aspirations for better lives and an end to injustice, it once again shows its true brutal nature. More than 3,000 people are behind bars, and at least 21 have died in those protests. And all eyes on a controversial surveillance vote today by the House to renew the NSA's warrantless spy program. At the center of Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, allowing the NSA to collect text and emails of foreigners overseas, even when they're talking with Americans. The House will also vote on an amendment that would protect those Americans. Today's vote is expected to be pretty close, and we'll keep an eye on it. And President Trump signing a bipartisan bill to help fight the opioid epidemic. And this will give U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents additional screening devices and some other tools to stop drugs from entering the country illegally. But the president says the fight isn't over yet.
It's a step, and it feels like a very giant step, but unfortunately it's not going to be a giant step because no matter what you do, this is something that keeps pouring in, and we're going to find the answer.
Well, both Republican and Democratic lawmakers joined the president at the signing ceremony. It was one of President Trump's most coveted campaign promises.
Build that wall. Build that wall. They said, the president of Mexico said they will not, under any circumstances, pay for the wall. They said to me, what is your comment? I said, the wall just got 10 feet higher. It's true. And we have to start by building a wall, a big, beautiful, powerful wall.
Well, President Trump getting ready to head to San Diego to check out 8 potential versions, we've showed you this, of his proposed border wall. But what happens to the prototypes when all is said and done? How about turning them into a national monument? Well, Sergio Munoz Sarmiento is an advisor to the newly formed nonprofit MAGA, and that's exactly what he's trying to do, or his group is trying to do. Thank you, Sergio, very much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us here.
So you're an art lawyer, right?
Yes,
and you want to turn this into something permanent.
Well, first I want to say that I'm the advisor for Christophe Buchel, the artist, who is headlining and spearheading this project. It's a nonprofit project called MAGA, Make Art Great Again. And what MAGA really is about, its mission is to bring contemporary art to a larger audience, but also to question what is art in our current situation.
Boy, that's a tough question.
Very tough question.
That is a tough one. So how much would this cost? First of all, let's start there.
The monument?
Yeah.
Well, that's currently under something that they're researching right now is the cost to it, and we're looking at both what are public versus private funding options.
And why do you think this would be a good idea?
Well, the main question we have is, what is the role of a monument or a memorial, right? And monuments and memorials pretty much are interchangeable, but the main premise behind them is to really question history, memory, legacy, collective consciousness, and collective action. If you look at these prototypes, they're really about potential. They're quite stunning, and this is what really impacted Mr. Buchel at first. When he saw these walls, and then he saw on television and internet, and then in person, he said, these not only have a relationship to history and culture, but also to something called land art, which is a huge art movement over the 1960s in this country.
Land art?
Land art.
What exactly is
that?
So
land art was primarily concerned with context, that the context determined the meaning of the object placed in that site. So landscape is very important. The question of time, the question of space, scale, how big is it or how small is it? And so all of these things to Mr. Buchel and to MAGA are represented in these 8 prototypes.
Now here's something though I'm immediately thinking of, because we've heard the controversy lately, taking down statues and different forms of art that are representative of past that people don't agree with, okay,
Sure.
in terms of slavery, that type of thing. This particular issue, the wall, obviously is very controversial. So people who have feelings that aren't positive about these, what we're now calling art,
Right.
how do you answer that?
Well, I think that one of the things that MAGA is concerned with and is aware of is that much of the art being produced today, and certainly in this country, is not of the controversial nature. In fact, it shies away from controversy. And so I don't think MAGA is afraid of that. In fact, MAGA doesn't take a position. It takes the position of being an observer,
right?
If it even takes that position. And, one of the things about culture,
art, it's supposed to make you think and question,
absolutely,
whether you agree with it or not.
How does culture impact politics, and how does politics impact culture? And so that goes to the example you were just giving me. How is current cultural movement or movements impacting what is deemed to be politically correct or to be politically feasible?
Yeah, but it's dangerous. It really is if we start thinking that all art has to be politically correct, because according to whose definition?
Well, exactly. And if you look at the movements that started with land art, what's called conceptual art, it was precisely about questioning the notion of propriety.
Yeah. All right, Sergio, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. It was very nice
You're
to meet
very
you.
welcome.
Thank you. Good luck.
Okay.
Good luck with the
Bye-bye.
project. All right. Well, the time now is about 20 minutes until the top of the hour. Tucker Carlson takes on BuzzFeed for publishing the largely discredited dossier.
If you came across a dossier in the middle of the Obama administration that laid out in some detail how he was born in Kenya and had a weird personal life, you would never run that.
Well, you got to see the rest of that fiery exchange coming up. And Hollywood liberals are dreaming of an Oprah presidency, but one star not on board, the celebrity calling her out ahead. Welcome back. Confederate monuments vandalized, and now the name of an iconic dinner show is getting a PC makeover.
Y'all come see my Dixie Stampede, the world's most visited dinner attraction.
Come on, legendary country singer Dolly Parton dropping the word Dixie from the show's title, claiming, quote, changing attitudes are behind her decision to remove any confusion or concern about the show. The 30-year attraction focuses on the North-South rivalry. And singer Seal calling Oprah Winfrey a hypocrite days after her speech at the Golden Globes. The internationally renowned musician trashing her on Twitter, posting some pictures of her with Harvey Weinstein, writing, when you have been part of the problem for decades, but suddenly they all think you're the solution. Seal going on to claim Oprah heard the Weinstein sexual assault rumors but ignored them. And now to a Fox Business Alert for you. New year, new travel plans, and that means you'll need to know the dangers of where you're heading. Tracy Crosco from our sister network, Fox Business, here with what the State Department is doing to make their advisories easier to understand. Good morning, Tracy.
Good morning, Heather. Yes, the State Department is revamping their travel warnings to, as you said, make them a little easier to understand, because people were getting a little confused before. So here's what they look like now. They're color-coded and using numbers. So if there is a number 1, it's you have to take normal precautions. A number 2, use increased caution. Number 3, you might want to reconsider the trip. And if it's labeled number 4, well, they are recommending against travel at that time. Now, countries that are labeled number 4, those are countries like Syria, North Korea. And these specific threats will also be described with summaries like a letter C for crime, T for terrorism, or U for civil unrest. So be on the lookout for these new changes.
Yeah, well, important to know, because we just talked about the countries in Mexico, I think 5 of them that are now ranked according to Syria.
There, yes.
So number 4. So 37% of Gen Xers say that they won't be able to afford to retire. Why?
Yeah, so this is 4 out of 10, and this is a new survey from TD Ameritrade. And Gen Xers, those are the people born from 1965 to the late 70s, and they say they're not going to be able to retire. And this is mainly because of pensions that have been phased out by employers, and they're more relying on their traditional, the 401ks or the IRAs. So it's been hard for them to focus on saving. Nearly half are worried about running out of money when they leave the workforce. So when you look at the other side, only a third expect to be financially secure once they do decide to retire. So I know a lot of people think that millennials are the ones that aren't saving, but it looks like there's also another generation that might have some difficulties when it's time to retire.
Well, at least those 401ks are doing better under President Trump right now. Diet Coke, just moving from Gen Xers to millennials, they want to be cooler for millennials. How?
So Diet Coke is getting a makeover. You may notice some slimmer cans there. They are up on your screen. And Diet Coke is unveiling some new flavors. You'll have cherry, blood orange, ginger lime, and mango. You'll start to see these later this month in your grocery stores.
Oh, mango.
Yeah,
I don't know about
that.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Tracy.
Thanks,
Have a great day.